paranormal community, and thank you for partaking in the Odyssey Files here, either live or on your favorite podcast program or Subspace Odyssey Radio. No relation. I am your host, Michael.
Wherever you happen to land.
Yes, I am your host, Michael O'Neill. With me, as you just heard, is my wonderful co-host, Mr. David Soring. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening, Mike. Good evening, Paranormal Universe. I'm excited for tonight's show.
Yes, so am I. Last week's show was amazing.
I really liked. I liked last week's show. I mean, a lot of good conversation came out of that. So shame on you if you missed it. Go back and listen to it.
Exactly. And this week, I'm even more excited because I think our conversation is going to be even better. And that we are going to be talking about UAPs, otherwise formerly known as UFOs. But the United States Congress, for the first time ever, held a public hearing on UAPs. And this happened about 2 weeks ago. And Dave and I have both watched the entire hearing on YouTube. And we're going to be kind of summarizing what was talked about, information that was given, and then trying to throw in our own 2 cents on.
I was going to say, give our viewpoints on something that we're not probably the most well-versed on. But I think it's a very interesting topic because it's very relevant.
Yes.
It's a kind of a historical type of moment, like for us. And I have been a proponent for a long time, as you know, that, they need to come clean and stop lying about it. Go back to Roswell, right? First thing that, like, oh my God, there was a crash of a UFO. It's amazing. We got these bodies and we got this technology. We got it. The next morning, yeah, it was a weather balloon. Look at this weather balloon here. Yeah, this is what I saw. I got really excited. It was a boring night. And I was like, ooh, yeah, weather balloon crashed. And wow, it could be a UFO. Like ever since then, I've been like, stop the bullshit and just come clean. And I think this is a huge stepping stone towards that. I think it's out in the public's eye now. So
we shall see.
We shall see. Right. I agree. I mean, it could get all covered up once again for another 50 years. Hopefully not, but it certainly could happen. So,
right. So that conversation is coming up in the second hour. First hour, obviously, we have to get through. And I don't say that in sense. I'm just like, we got to get through another set of story. No, we have to answer listener emails and hopefully help some people in that. But first, and I don't know why my voice just went up an octave. Maybe I'm that excited.
It's like, yeah, I don't know.
I have said things are changing, so maybe puberty's finally hitting. But we have a very, very amazing announcement to tell everybody about right now, and we've been teasing it for a couple weeks now. That we have been. I mean, we joke that we've been in negotiations, but we've just been talking with the showrunner of Skinwalker Ranch to come on the show and do an interview with us. And I'm so happy to announce that we have finally nailed down a date. So it's going to be a very, very special episode because it's going to take place Thursday, August 24th. So not this coming Thursday, but the Thursday after. He's a busy man. And so we have to go on his schedule. And so we are going to accommodate him. And so we'll have a special edition of the Odyssey Files Thursday, August 24th. He'll be here. His name, and I'm going to hack his last name. We're going to find out how to properly pronounce it before the show when he's actually on. But Mark Mauricio, something like that.
I'm just going with Mark. I'm going to let you run with the last name so that when he comes on the show and he's like, what the hell was that? I'm going to be like, I don't know. It was Mike. He has a hard time enunciating stuff sometimes. So.
We'll leave him one friend. So, yeah, so he would be on the show from 7 to 9, the full 2 hours. We will be talking Skinwalker Ranch, and I'm not sure yet whether he is associated with Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, but if he is, we'll be adding that to the pile too. Definitely have a lot to talk to him about. I especially want to know who the guilty party is who came up with the term high strangeness, because I want to kick him in the nuts.
We're not even going to waste 30 seconds of our precious audio time with him about that term. No,
we will.
Absolutely not.
You have your questions and I have mine.
That's true. So, I give you that respect.
I will find out, Dave. I will find out.
I'm going to leave that totally for you, my friend. I am not heading that direction. My questions are already I'm already trimming the list. Let's just put it that way.
Right. I get that. And all of my other questions are going to be, as always, top notch. But every once in a while you have to throw out the fluffer, and that is
just don't lead out with that.
Why
throw it in the middle somewhere?
What am I, a rookie?
No, you're not a rookie in any way, shape, or form.
Not going to be starting with If I had a glove and you were in front of me, smack against the face.
Yeah, for the old English, before the duel, right before the pistols come out of the case. Yep,
exactly. And I think I could take you. So there we go. So anyway, we have that going for us. And as I pointed out to Dave, that will actually be episode 275. And we've been talking for a while that every 25 episodes, we want to do something very special for you guys. So that is actually just a happy coincidence. Or as they say, beautiful. Say what?
I said that works out beautiful.
It does. The phrase "I love it when a plan comes together" comes to mind. So
it's like the ultimate segue,
It's segue.
It's all right. Ultimate segue.
Speaking of segues, let's talk about people. Let's talk about people dying.
Well, there you go. It usually ends up in our conversation somewhere. So,
well, if it wasn't for death, we would have nothing to talk about. Except
that's
for
very true. We wouldn't exist.
Aliens and Bigfoot.
Yeah, I was going to say we were talking about Bigfoot, which there's about 1 billion shows to talk about Bigfoot. So we'd get lost in that fold. We were talking about UFOs. There's about 1 billion shows to talk about UFOs, so we get lost in that fold. Or maybe we'd focus on something not quite so mainstream like Wendigos or Skinwalkers, which I don't really honestly see a lot of podcasts. I can't even think one off the top of my head that specifically deal with, let's say, Skinwalkers week in and week out, or at least let's just say 8 out of 10 episodes. And then, they got to throw in something to kind of change gears for a second before they head back into and dive deep back into what they're diving into. So
that's because there's just not that much information on either of those. I don't think you could do
more. Yeah, right. I mean, there's only so many personal stories.
Exactly. Speaking of stories. Let's segue into ours.
All
right. Here we go. Got another batch for you, and almost missed it again, but I remembered. Here we go. Mailbag. The Odyssey Files is proud to present the Mailbag. And there it is. Okay, it is official. The Mailbag is here. So here we go. Story number 1. Dying relatives saying they see me. So dying relatives keep seeing me. My great-grandmother died about 2 years ago. The day before she died, she kept grabbing the side of her hospital bed. And my mom asked, "Is somebody there?" And she replied, "Yes," then said my name. She did that another time before she died. Fast forward to present times. My mom is dying of cancer. She just said she saw me and was asking me a question. I'm not in the hospital room with her, so she was in fact not seeing me. My dad is with her and he told me this. Why do my relatives keep seeing me when they're dying? Keep in mind, I hardly saw my great grandma that often because she lived so far away, but would talk often on the phone. But it's not like she saw me all the time or super close to me. My mom's on all cancer meds right now that are making her sleep a lot. And it is still weird to me that now two people have quote unquote seen me. Gives me a weird feeling. I've heard of dying patients seeing dead relatives while they are actively dying, but never heard of people seeing relatives that are still alive. Have either one of you heard of anything like this? So I have heard of people who see people who are still alive, but they're not dying in any of those instances. I can't imagine that there's too much of a separation between whether you're dying or not. Um, but I guess the only explanation I have for this goes back to Cena's explanation of how we're always living past, present, and future all at the same time. And so, I mean, I don't know how that works when you're dying. I think things are obviously way different when you're that open, and when you are ready to go and are about to cross over the veil. So, I mean, could your relatives, your grandmother and your mother, my condolences, by the way, for your mother. That's tough to go through, but I I don't think it's too far fetched to think that either they were seeing a past version of you or a future view or future version of you. Who knows? If we live all these times, maybe they were seeing you from when you do pass, and you just happen to come back as the um emissary, guess the usher to help them find their seats across the river Styx. But the only other thing that comes to mind, and I was thinking about this a lot today, is I mean, they're obviously sick, they're on meds, they can see things differently, or they do see things different, not so much hallucinations, but maybe they misidentify things. And I know a lot of relatives look the same, they carry the same genes.
Mhm.
So I mean, you as the son uh, could look like your great grandfather, something like
Mhm.
that. So I mean, it's possible they weren't seeing you, but somebody that of the family that looks just like you, and they mistook it as you simply because they've never seen they don't know that there's another relative or whatever that looks like you. Um, I guess I would be interested to know if quote unquote you talk to them, because your mom did say she asked you a question, but there was never any response as to whether you answered it or not. Um, so I think that's irrelevant. I think that just kind of goes between whether you would have known that information or whether this was somebody else. But that's kind of my answer for that one. Obviously, I think that it's hope anyway that it's comforting that they are seeing somebody that they know and that they love. Whether you're alive or not, I think it's just kind of irrelevant. I think that's just kind of what they needed to see and experience at that time, and so they did.
I was going to go exactly where you kind of and like where you threw in like, oh, and one more thought, and then you went to the, you could look like your great grandfather. That's the direction I was heading. So, um, I'm not going to reiterate all that. What I will say is that I think when you're passing, whoever your guardian angel or your guardian angels as you're transitioning, whoever's meeting you there for your transition moment, um, is somebody that you really care about and somebody that's special to you. So, unbeknownst to you, at the individual who wrote this into us, unbeknownst to you, even though you didn't see your great grandmother as frequently maybe as you think you would, doesn't mean that you weren't the most important thing to her. You know, right? I mean that would be asinine to say that like that wasn't the case, right? She might, not stereotyping anybody, but as we get older and older and older, um, there's people passing away and our friends pass away and stuff like that. So maybe your great grandmother, uh, you talk to her often on the phone, so maybe like that was the highlight of her week or month or whatever, not just her day. And so how you managed to show up to kind of transition her, I don't have an answer for that. I'm not going to dive into that. But the fact that she chose to see you, or that your guardian angel chose you to be the face to transition her, I think is a wonderful and very comforting thing. And I think the same thing's going to happen with your mom. I agree with Mike. I would like to know if your mom was asking you questions, what kind of questions, like what specifically were the questions, unless they were very personal. I mean, I would like to know what the questions were and, um, how are they potentially relevant to her passing, if they are, or if she's just kicking questions out because of the meds, stuff like that. So, but I would take this as and I throw the air quotes here, a paranormal feather in your cap that you have affected two individuals' lives on the planet Earth in such a great way that that you're the one who's transitioning them. Again, I don't know how that's happening, but the fact that it is happening, I think is great. So, all right. Number 2, weird experience in Hatch, Utah. This happened all in one night, and any insight you guys can provide is welcome. I need help understanding how this could be connected. This past week, we rented a cabin in Hatch, Utah with some friends. We were pretty high up in the mountains, and the house didn't have AC, so we opened all the windows. This matters for later. We were surrounded by beautiful tall grasses, awesome views. It was just perfect. We went out at night to stargaze, and that's when things started to get weird. My husband and I were out by ourselves after our friends went in to get ready for bed when we saw a ton of what we thought were satellites appear out of nowhere. They formed into a triangle shape, and suddenly the night sky that was inside the triangle started to move with the lights very slowly, almost like something was using a cloaking device to hide whatever it was. We both thought UFO and couldn't believe what we were seeing. Just as fast as it appeared, it zipped out of sight and we didn't see anything else again. But we noticed that all the sound around us had stopped. No bugs, no birds, no bats, nothing. Except there were tons of shooting stars and a few meteors as soon as it was gone. We both went inside to tell our friends, and also because we started to feel a little uneasy. I wish that was it, but an hour later, we were in our room getting ready for bed when we heard a high pitched whistle outside. We both laughed and joked about skinwalkers and wendigos. I don't really believe in that stuff, so we laughed it off and got into bed. Not 10 minutes later, we heard heavy footsteps on the deck outside our room and heavy breathing. I was paralyzed with fear while we listened to it stomp heavily and emit a guttural deep breath. I jumped up and hit the lights outside on the deck and threw open the blinds, yelling, assuming that it was a bear, but nothing was there. It had rained heavy that day, and there were no prints on the deck or dirt or mud around the house. I 100% believe in aliens, but can't explain the second encounter. Has anyone else experienced anything like this? Do I need to worry about being followed? Our friends experienced none of this, and I'm just stumped. I felt so uneasy the rest of that first night, but after that, nothing else happened for the next 3 nights that we were there, and I started to feel totally at ease. Guys, what did I experience? Okay. So I definitely would say that the UFO moment that you witnessed something really cool. So you've got what appear to be satellites kind of streaming over, and all of a sudden they kind of start lining up, and you're like, wait a second, satellites don't stop and line up, and then something happened. So it formed a shape. That shape seemed to, the inside of that shape seemed to change, which would be indicative of either like a reflection type of moment or just a blacking out of the sky type of moment. And then it passed, it moved on its own and passed. I think that's a great personal experience. I wish you would have got some great video of that, but great personal experience. Now, this goes kind of like off into left field, but there is a correlation between like UFO activity, UAP activity, and Bigfoot. And so I'm going to say, I'm thinking, I can't help but think of Skinwalker Rancher that is in Utah, that they have had sightings of what they consider to be a Bigfoot on the ranch, along with the whole sightings of dire wolves and a whole bunch of other stuff that we're going to get into in a couple of weeks. But I'm kind of thinking that the two might not be related, that this UAP, UFO type of anomaly manifested. You noticed it, you happened to be in the right place at the right time type of thing, and then it was gone, and that moment was over. And then as far as I don't think there was a meteor shower. If meteor showers are predicted. So I'm just going to say they were shooting stars. Shooting stars, when you're out in a place, if you're out in a location where it's really away from major cities and the sky is completely open to you, it's absolutely amazing. Like, you can look around, and if you're observant, you can see on any given night, I would say that you could see half a dozen to a dozen shooting stars if you're out there for a couple hours, along with hundreds, well, not hundreds, dozens of satellites, kind of tracking across the sky. So I think that this other manifestation of whatever it was, I don't think it was a skinwalker. I don't think it was a Wendigo. I don't think it was a bear. I'm not really sure what it was, but the deep guttural sound to me does not sound like a skinwalker or a Wendigo from what I know of them. And if you were thinking bear, I'm thinking Bigfoot or something along those lines. So it wouldn't surprise me that there weren't any prints there. I don't know. I'm kind of, I don't want to make the connection, but I'm kind of making the connection as I'm talking that we've talked about this many times, and we're probably not in the mainstream of Bigfoot on this thought process, but I personally think that Bigfoot is some type of alien creature, and that's why it has the ability to appear, disappear. Why can't we find any remains? Why can't we find this? Why can't we find that? And it's a rarity when we get a couple of footprints, or we get a camera sighting, or we get a little bit of a video clip off somebody's phone, or we get the Patterson film. I think that is a rarity for how many eyewitness sightings there have been of Bigfoot compared to the quality of what I would consider to be legitimate evidence. The evidence is minuscule compared to the personal experiences. So I'm going to go with the fact that you got visited by something, but I don't think the two things were related. And I think you're perfectly safe, and I think you're fine.
Oh yeah, they're perfectly safe and fine. I don't think they're going to be followed. That's for sure.
No.
So there's a lot to unpack here, at least for me. First, why would anybody want to take any sort of vacation in Utah? That's my first question. You're obviously somewhat psychotic just with that. So, or mentally ill. I'm sorry, I just hate Utah. Minus Skinwalker Ranch. So present ranches.
Yeah, I was going to say, way to set up that interview here in 2 weeks with saying, why the fuck would anybody want to go to Utah?
Vacation in Utah. Technically, they're not vacationing there.
Well, true.
So they're doing paranormal studies. So, um, but anyway, that's just a joke on Utah. But anyway, and it really has nothing to do with nothing. So, it's interesting to me that for somebody who doesn't believe in anything other than aliens, that like about skinwalkers and about wendigos and you know that the shimmering of like of stars or stuff like that might be a cloaking device. Like you seem to be pretty at least informed on
Mhm.
what certain theories are. And when you look at tons and tons and tons of stars, you do see certain things. Um, so I mean, I also would like to know how you tell the difference between a shooting star and a meteor. Like, oh, that's a meteor. Like, who does that without a telescope, obviously?
Well, meteor showers are always predicted because,
Well, right. I know that, but
like,
I just mean,
yeah, I mean they know when they're coming. Like we're supposed to have them. Well, obviously we won't see them here tonight because of the we're going to get rain all night. But the 12th and 13th is supposed to be good viewing for meteor showers. So
right. No, I get that.
last night and
But
tonight, basically, but tonight's a washout for us here in Minnesota. So
right. That wasn't my point. My point was just, you know, yes, you do know when a meteor shower is coming in, but they're few and far between. Obviously,
yeah,
they
very few. Yeah.
only happen once or twice a year. And so unless they were actually there while a meteor shower was going on, I would really like to know how they would be able to tell the difference between a shooting star and a meteor. But again, it's immaterial. It's just another question that I have about like these people's mindsets and the fact that maybe they're predisposed to certain things that they're seeing that lead them to think and have the mentality that things are happening in a way that they aren't actually happening. But I mean, it's definitely a really cool experience. I agree with you, Dave, on that one. It's a great
Mhm.
personal experience. When I got to the part about the footsteps, right away my mind went to signs. I mean, that just seems to have like the exact same, like running up the roof and running down the
Mhm.
the thing, and these phantom footsteps following the lights in the sky.
Yep.
And so it's hard for me to get past that. And the fact that their description of it is almost exactly like what they did. They threw open the door and they ran around and they were screaming and nothing was there because it was up on
Right.
the roof. So I
Right.
mean, did they have is that why they couldn't see anything? Did it go up on the roof? And I do think that these are connected in a small sense. Um, I don't think that it had any sort of intent to harm anybody. Uh,
Mhm.
Dave and I have both heard stories of Bigfoot, coming along and banging on the windows and banging on the side of the walls for hours, and you can hear the footsteps. And but this had none. These were just footsteps in like some guttural thing. Um, so I mean, who's to say that it wasn't an animal? Maybe it was a wolf, that was there and got and then before you could throw up the sash or whatever, or maybe it was around the corner, who knows? It was gone. I don't think it was a skinwalker. I don't think that it was a wendigo, especially a
Mhm.
wendigo, because I think he probably would have been harmed. I don't think they
I
they
don't
they
think you'd
don't
be writing this in. I think you'd be dead if it was a Wendigo.
yeah, like wendigos are not peeping toms. Like
Mm-mm.
they'll just be like, oh, what are they doing in there? No, like, no,
No, they're looking to eat. So,
right. And so whereas I agree with you that Bigfoot does have a certain uh ET quality to it. Um, I don't believe that this was Bigfoot in that sense. I do think that if anything, it was uh, probably an animal, or it was somebody from that ship. Who knows? Maybe it was Bigfoot. Maybe it was a ship of Bigfoots, and we don't know. but
How cool would that be?
a ship of
Like,
Bigfoots.
yeah, just like right, like how cool. This is what I think sometimes, right? Like, how cool would it be? Here's what I think is good. This is what I seriously think is going to happen when we get our first our first official UFO lands in a public place, and I don't think it's going to be set up by the Pentagon. I don't think it's going to be set up by our government in any way, shape, or form. I think it's just going to arbitrarily happen someday. And I don't think it's going to be necessarily in a major metropolis, but I think it's going to be in a situation where there are witnesses and there are people. And I think what's going to happen is that craft is going to open and we are going to walk out. That's what I think is going to happen. I think human beings are going to walk out. And I think people are going to totally lose their shit. That we are like super advanced somehow and are coming back and visiting our old selves. That's what I think is going to happen. Now, cast that aside, how freaking cool would it be if like it lands and like
Chewy.
25 to 35 different Sasquatches come walking out of there, and they're all just like standing there looking around, and somebody, and people are there, and they get this great footage of like a spaceship and a whole entire tribe of Bigfoots. Like, I think that would be phenomenal, personally.
It would be, right up until somebody tried to shoot him.
Well, right, because right, how stupid mankind is, right? Yeah, right. So some idiot would be there that would do, or somebody would call somebody and be like, dude, you've been talking about getting a trophy, man. They're over here 8 miles from your house, and then something bad would happen. I mean,
yes,
and then and then maybe that whole entire city would be obliterated. Right. And then, maybe they'd be like, oh, really? You shot one of our people and we came down to say hi and you got aggressive. And now we're just going to go up in our spacecraft and we're just going to, take out 300 square miles here. And it just, vaporizes.
Yeah, I can't see that happening. But getting back to the story.
I do want to throw this in, because I should have looked this up earlier, and it's my bad that I didn't. Hatch, Utah is way down south, just north of the line between Arizona and kind of over towards Nevada, kind of halfway between Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon. Beautiful area, by the way, if you haven't been there. Bryce Canyon is amazing. So is Zion, and that's just north of Grand Canyon, and Grand Canyon's actually kind of connected to that Colorado River and Glen Canyon and stuff like that. But anyway, so just to get an idea, that's in the way southwest corner of Utah, and the ranch is kind of, I won't say way in the northeast corner, but it's up in the northeast corner of Utah. So all the way across the state.
Gotcha. So just in conclusion, I don't think you have anything to worry about.
No.
I think it was a great personal experience, although it scared the shit out of you, but it's over now and you can laugh about it.
I would think too, like when you turn the lights on, and I agree with you, and it probably was a wild animal of some type. When you turn the lights on, like she said, she turned the lights on and then ran to the window kind of thing. When you turn the lights on out on the porch, I don't know too many wild animals that aren't going to like bolt. They're out of there, man, because they're like, oh shit, we got discovered, and they're gone. And wild animals, believe it or not, for people who are not knowledgeable about this, we are like the slowest thing on the planet Earth, outside of like a tortoise and like a walking catfish. Any other type of predatory animal on the planet Earth can catch us anytime it wants to. We are not running away from anything. We can't even run away from a crocodile or an alligator. We can't run away from anything. So
I saw some videos today that not only made me laugh, but they were of people being chased by chickens.
Yeah, so we can't outrun a chicken either. So
you can't outrun a chicken.
All right, we can't outrun anything. We're like the slowest thing on the planet Earth. So
all I need to do is be able to outrun you.
That's the way I always told people, right? Like if we're ever out and there's some really wild, weird encounter, if I'm not, as long as I'm not last, I'm good. And if I know I'm going to be last, I'm tripping somebody.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
just to make sure that I'm not last.
Exactly. Survival of the fittest at that point.
That's exactly right. Yep.
All right. Moving on to number 3. Was I close to being possessed? Ever since I can remember, I have had interactions with things not from this world. Knocking sounds, whispers, seeing ghosts out of the corner of my eye or outside of my window. That probably played a big part in me eventually getting obsessed with any type of paranormal beings, demons, spirits, etc. I would constantly watch videos about them, trying to educate myself about what they are, how they look, and how I could defend myself. The more time I spent doing that, the number of interactions increased severely and got way scarier. I could see beings in my room, just standing in the corner of my room and staring at me. It got so bad that every time I had to go upstairs to my room after sunset, my dad had to hold my hand and walk me step by step to my bed because I was so terrified. It just kept getting worse and worse. When I was an older teen, the severity of the interactions peaked. I would get my bed sheets ripped off me. My bed would sometimes vibrate slightly, and I kept seeing one of the presumably demons way more often than any other. It was a woman with long brown hair, average female height, and a ripped white dress. I saw her in my sleep, in the living room, on the balcony when I went to the toilet at night. I even sometimes saw her when I was closing my eyes trying to fall asleep. Around that time, I started getting this weird feeling that something was trying to enter me, trying to take control of my body. Whenever it was happening, I had to concentrate really hard on praying. It was so difficult. I couldn't keep still on my knees. I would forget the words, mispronounce them, or a voice in my head kept interrupting me. This happened 4 times, and after the fourth time, I decided that enough is enough, and I talked to my parents about it. Of course, keeping some things to myself in order not to scare them as much, they blamed it fully on child imagination and too much video games. The only family member that actually took me seriously was my grandma. She got a priest to bless the house. She gave me a golden necklace with a cross, a rosary, and told me to pray every day before bed and not to be scared because these beings are unable to harm me. After the priest blessed the house and I started praying often, the encounters slowly vanished. That was some time ago now, but I still sometimes ask myself, was I close to being possessed? What do you guys think? Uh, yes, yes and no, I guess would be my answer, as clarifying as that is. Um,
That was crystal clear answer, by the way.
thank you, thank you. Well, I do attempt to bring light and clarity into people's lives. So, um, the thing that I don't want to say bothers me, but the thing that's off about this, unless it's not part of what you wrote in, uh, is whether there was any invitation, whether you actually sought to communicate. You had the knocks, you had whispers and stuff, but was there any interaction and intent on your part? And I'm wondering if that's the case, simply because you're doing all of this research and you're watching these videos and you're doing everything like tried as you put to educate yourself, but for what purpose? Like, what you said to defend yourself. Nothing in there ever said that you ever were ever attacked or under any sort of uh under any sort of attack, I guess you could just say. um Now, whether you left that out, I think you definitely have abilities. I think you had abilities since you were a child, which is what attracted a lot of these spirits to you, to whisper, to try and get your attention. And as you opened yourself up more and more and more, especially as you said to get obsessed with it, um, I'm wondering if you threw out there eventually an invite that attracted whatever this long brown haired girl was. I mean, right away, I was like, oh, good, a lady in white. Like, we don't have enough of those stories out there. Um, Obviously, one of the one of the very clear signs of not so much possession, but I mean, we just did the obviously the topic last week of infestation, especially is not being able to pray, not being able to remember, psalms, not being, mispronouncing. They try anything that they can to to stop it. And I think what happened, and we talked about this last week too, is you got more comfortable and more confident in yourself. You kind of turned yourself over to religion, you turn yourself over to faith, and that gave you strength, and that gave you confidence, and that gave you a solidarity with yourself that you could throw yourself into. And as we talked about last week, that's the last thing demonics, demons or whatever, hate, because it's not worth their time. And I think as you grew and that solidified around you, you became less of a target for them, less of an interest. And then after a while, they just left. Um, so I mean, it's good. Uh, I'm I'm not a huge proponent of religion or everything like that, but I do not tell anybody to shy away from it. If that is what gives you strength, if that is what gives you your faith, have at it. And I think in this instance, with your grandmother's help and her kind of being there to support you and reassure you, um, I think that helped as well. Um, do I think that you were probably almost possessed? Yes. Um, the only thing that I'm missing is what attracted them to you to begin with, other than your normal abilities. I'm going to let Dave talk about the shitty parenting. Uh, 'Cause I know that you enjoy that, so I'm not gonna
Yep.
take that I'm not gonna take that one away from you.
That's how I'm
Um,
starting my whole entire
yeah,
spiel.
yep. So, I do think that you were in danger. I really do.
Mhm.
And I think that, um, you turning yourself over to what gave you strength and what gave you faith, helped you get through it. So good for you. Keep it up. Because who knows, if you stop, they might they might check on you every once in a while, and if they see that you're back to being uh vulnerable, they're gonna slatch right back onto you. Um so i, I don't, I guess saying I'm sorry you have to you have to like keep praying in order to keep them away, but that doesn't seem right. So uh keep it up, and yeah, and good luck. So take it away, Mr. Sawyer.
Okay. So 50 lashes to your parents for uh, telling you that it's child imagination and too much video games when you've got so much stuff happening. So, like, I'm not going to beat your parents to death on this, but as a parent, as a child who went through a bunch of shit, I've said this before many times. If my dad was not there for me, I would not be the person I am today. I guarantee you that. That he was there at a lot of times that were really, really difficult from a child's perspective. So, if your child is experiencing something, and I'm not going to sound like a broken record because I haven't said this in a while, because we really haven't talked about it in a while. But if your child is experiencing something, get up off of your ass and check it out, and don't say it's nothing. Just go back to bed, or it's just imagination, or video games, or whatever. That's just an asinine cop out. And God, I'm not going to revoke your parenting card because you might be a great parent other than this one slip. But it, now that I'm pointing it out, don't repeat it. Okay. So, secondly, I totally think that this is a case of invitation. You're digging deep into the paranormal. How do they look? Who are they? How can I defend myself? Um, Digging into demons and demons, not demonology. There's a difference. It didn't say I'm digging into demonology to just kind of learn about demonology. It said that I'm educating myself on demons, which to me, if you're going to educate yourself on demons and you're going to start digging deep into that, you're introducing yourself to them. And I think that's probably what happened here. So if it got to the point where you couldn't go to bed you couldn't go upstairs to your bedroom at night unless your dad was holding your hand, that's terrifying. And I agree. I know what it feels like. I can honestly say that. So uh that's terrifying. And you weren't my age when that was happening. I was young when that was happening. You're a teenager when this is happening. So the fact that your parent has to hold your hand to go up to your bed, obviously something is really, really wrong. And your dad should know that. Based on the fact that he had to hold your hand every night to take you to bed, that it wasn't a video game that was doing it. So, okay, so the manifestation of this female demon, obviously, I think it probably was ripped white dress, long brown hair, average height, da da da. The fact that you saw her all the time, she was making herself familiar to you. I agree with Mike 100%. You found something to and as we've talked about many times, and I've talked about this hundreds of thousands of times, you got to find something to ground yourself into. Your grandmother took you to religion. You found a comfort level in that, and so you chose to use that. I think that's fantastic. Um, I don't think you need to pray every day for your soul. I don't see that being the case here. I think this is a case of oppression. Were you possessed? I think you were a step away. I definitely think you were oppressed. I think the oppression came when the female showed up. I think that was a transitional step from feeling uncomfortable and having shit happen, but not having a visual to put with it. And then all of a sudden, one day, you get a visual uh, of a being that's there. I think that was the transitional phase for you, and I think that went from infestation to oppression. Um, I'm glad that you found what you found, and I'm glad that you got through it. You're going to have some emotional scars, so don't be embarrassed by them. And if you need help with that, there are many, many good therapists out there that you can talk to that can help you get through some of that stuff. Um, so don't hold on to that baggage, thinking you're the only one, because you're certainly not the only one. Get rid of that baggage. Do not hold on to that, because that holding on to that type of baggage is exactly what will keep you connected to a potential revisit. If you let all of that shit go and you move forward and you have yourself grounded in faith or in anything for that matter, but in this case, obviously you've said that you have yourself grounded in faith. Um, I don't think you're ever going to be visited again. Honestly, I think we've said this many times, best way, and I don't know why the hell this has been popping in my head now for the whole show, but if you've got a whole field of sheep and you've got a sheep herder, and it's probably Jesus that I'm seeing being the sheep herder, but if you've got a whole field of sheep and there's a wolf that approaches and every sheep there is physically fit and running at full speed, except for the one older sheep that's got a bum leg, we all know what's going to happen there. Like, we all know what sheep is going to be taken. And that's exactly what, as we talked about last week and reiterating it this week, that's exactly what demons are looking for, or any predator is looking for the easiest prey. Who's the easiest one that I could take advantage of here? You no longer are. Congratulations. So, that's all I got on that. I do think that you were on. I do think you were on. I think if you would not have found, if your grandma hadn't have stepped in, I think your life would be totally different than it is right now. So, thank you, grandmother. Okay. I think I accidentally invited a ghost into my bedroom. Yeah, back-to-back bad parenting stories. It was a little after 5:30 a.m. when I heard 3 light knocks on my bedroom door. Assuming it to be my 3-year-old, I called out, "Come in." 4 more louder knocks followed. Assuming the door was locked, which it was, I got up and opened it, telling her to come in again. When she didn't, I called out her name twice, then stepped into the hall and felt around for her, confused and still somewhat sleepy. When I realized she wasn't out there, I went back to my room to get my phone for a flashlight just in case she snuck in and saw the baby monitor. She was sprawled out on her bed fast asleep, and any hint of me being tired left. I used my phone's flashlight to check the hallway, the guest room, and the stairs. The dog was asleep at the bottom of the stairs, and all my other kids were in bed. What the heck? Did I just invite this ghost into my room? No. Nope, you didn't, because there was no ghost to begin with. And who in the hell has children and locks their damn bedroom door and makes a 3-year-old child who potentially is having bad dreams, or any one of your other kids, knock on the damn door to get in your room? Shame on you. I wish that. Yeah, I'm not even going to say it. I'm not even going there. I'm not even going there. Anyway, no, you did not have a paranormal experience. There is no ghost in your house. There is nothing. It's 5:30 in the morning. You're coming out of deep REM sleep. You heard something in your dream. You were asleep. You were not even awake. You even said that you were in the hallway, confused and still sleepy. And that's after you got out of bed and you were walking around unlocking the door. So the fact when you're laying in bed yelling, "Come in," you're not awake. You're still right on the verge of that REM sleep. Um, what you heard was probably part of a dream. There's no ghost in your house, and there's no ghost coming into your room. The fact that your dog was sleeping at the bottom of the stairs completely at peace is a huge indicator that there's nothing paranormal going on. Um, anyway, I'm throwing the bullshit flag. It's official. Where's the bullshit? Where's the flag stamp?
You don't
Where's
have
the
it.
man? We got to get that. We need to get the bullshit flag stamp.
Let me see if I can find one.
I'm throwing it here. I mean, I hate to say that to somebody who took the time to reach out to us, but this is this is nothing paranormal. Nothing. And it's horrible parenting. And I'm sorry that I have to point that out, but it's horrible parenting. Don't lock your door when you got kids in the house. Lock your door. Lock your door to your house. Don't lock your bedroom door. So it's all yours, brother.
Gotcha. Hold on. I'm downloading
I
the
know you're
bullshit.
searching. Yeah, I know you are.
So I just have to make sure that it's well.
Yeah, there's like no swear words or anything in there.
Well,
Well,
it
not
says
that that matters, but
no, but I found a GIF that I wanted, but it's just letting me download a picture of it, so it doesn't actually move. So maybe next week. So
next week.
now the locking of the door could be an accident, you know, 'cause she said just in case it was locked. It happens. So I mean, let's not throw out the horrible parent flag stamp on that one
My
just
my
yet.
parents never locked. My parents never even closed their door, and I never ever closed my bedroom door. I never even closed my door once my daughter was born. And then for any of my kids, I never had my door closed. So there wasn't even a possibility of it locking because I wanted to make sure that they were okay all the time, 24/7.
Well, maybe this woman doesn't like her kids. It happens.
It very well could be. That's why we're throwing the flag, or at least I am. So.
So, I mean, I agree. There's no way that you invited a spirit into your bedroom, because the intent there was not for a spirit to come into your room. It was for your daughter to come into. So, I mean, if the spirit needed an invite, it still hasn't gotten it.
No.
You didn't say who's there. Is anybody out in the hallway? Can just come on in, like you were inviting your daughter. That was
Right.
the intent. The intent was not to invite a spirit into your bedroom. If you did invite a spirit into your bedroom, you would not be talking about, did I invite one? You would know because it
Yeah.
didn't come in your bedroom just to do absolutely nothing.
Right.
So I agree, and that's a very, very good point about the dog. Dog sleeping at the bottom of the stairs would lead me to believe it had absolutely no problem with anything that was going on. I do believe, 5:30 in the morning, you're sleepy. Those light knocks could definitely have been misinterpreted
Mhm.
as something. Maybe one of your kids was, I don't necessarily say having a bad dream, but doing something that maybe knocked on a wall
Right.
on accident. Maybe they were up early and maybe their headboard or whatever hit the wall for a little bit, and you mistook that as knocks on your door. There definitely could have been something outside that you heard as being over by the door. Um, so yeah,
Tree branch hitting the house and the wind blowing. I mean, that could be a million natural reasons.
exactly. And if that's the only thing that has ever happened, period, at your place, it's just those knocks, then yeah, I think you're perfectly fine. And I just think you misidentified and misheard what was going on. I think you're perfectly safe, especially in your bedroom. And yeah, try not to lock the damn door. You know,
And I just want to point this out too. And I was going to say this and I totally forgot, but everybody stop relying on your phone to be like the Swiss Army knife of 2023, please. Buy a flashlight. Right? Like if you think like, or why didn't you flip the light switch? Like you gotta turn the lights on in your room. You could, I mean, unless you live in a house that doesn't have light switches on the wall because the wiring's that outdated that you have like pull chains and stuff in the hallway and you're scared, and that freaks you out or whatever. I get it. I've been in houses like that. Buy a flashlight. They're like, but you can get one for
yeah,
$5,
yeah,
you know? And flashlights are substantially easier to use, and you can just leave it right on your nightstand, and instead of having to fumble around with your flashlight when you're tired and it's dark and you're
yep,
not awake, you could just grab the damn flashlight and click a button and boom, you can see
yep.
what's going on. So
And speaking of seeing the light, it is time
seeing
for
the light. I see
it
that.
is it's it's time for intermission. So
Intermission.
so yeah, we will be back in just a couple of minutes. See you on the other side.
Hey, this is Mike Couch from Lost Limbs Foundation. Make sure you check out Mike and Dave on the Odyssey Files because they really need the listeners.
Hello, I'm Al Lagarde from Paper Route Productions, executive producer, Kindred Spirits, Paranormal State, a whole bunch of television shows. And I've worked with a lot of people on paranormal projects and met a lot of people in paranormal radio. And I want to say that Dave and Mike are two people who have a face for radio, in particular, internet radio.
Hey, it's Chris Fleming. More painful than a Tyrannosaurus Rex stepping on your testicle. Listen to Dave and Mike on Odyssey Files.
Hey everybody, it's Chad Lindbergh, and you are listening to the Odyssey Files with David and Michael. And let me tell you, it's almost as painful as a Skype glitch.
This is Andy Lynch, Director of Photography of Kindred Spirits. And when I'm not filming, aiming an atom at some creepy location, you can find me listening to the Odyssey Files with Dave and Mike. Or doing something else, I don't know.
Hello everyone, this is Ken Boggle. You hear so many great moments during each and every episode of the Odyssey Files with Dave and Mike, but if I had to really choose my favorite moment, it would have to be when the show was over.
I do say I love Ken. It's probably one of my favorites. Is that last one right there? So, I think because we're so excited about our discussion this evening, our main topic, just move the last two 2 stories to next week and continue on with our main discussion.
100%. Yep.
All righty. So, 2 weeks
God,
ago.
Did I just say 100%? Wow.
Yes, there you go. There's your 100%. No doubt in your mind you want to continue on.
Well, right. Yeah. Because I don't want to, this topic is exciting. So, I mean, I don't want to waste. Yeah. We'll get to the stories. We'll get to them next. We'll roll them in next week. So,
right. So, it is for those of you who are listening at a later date. Today's date is August 13th. At the about 2 weeks ago, the United States Congress held the first ever hearing on Unidentified Ariel Phenomena, or UAP, which they obviously rebranded from the former UFO. So why, nobody knows. But the thing about it is, and we can talk about this more if you want. I don't think it's not that important. But I heard only a few of the Congress people mentioned extraterrestrials. The new term is non-human organism.
Whatever. Stop coming. I think that some of those people just sit around and think up asinine terms. Like, I think that we should call this a biological abnormality. Shut up.
See, now the thing about it is one of the Congress people asked one of the speakers, or one of the guests, why they don't use that term anymore. And I agree with his answer, because he just said, I wanted a more broader and general term that could encompass a lot more than what extraterrestrial did. I mean, extraterrestrial is aliens to us. Like, that is what extraterrestrial was to me. Now, if you use it's almost like the difference between supernatural and paranormal. Supernatural is very specific, but paranormal blankets it all.
Right.
So I guess calling them non-human organisms, non-human whatever, because they also call them like non-human craft or something like that, or non-human aerial stuff, could encompass like not only extraterrestrials, but maybe there are Bigfoots flying this shit, or interdimensional beings, which wouldn't be considered extraterrestrials. So I mean, I get it. I get the whole change in that. But yeah, I figured you would probably be as upset about non-human organisms as I am about high strangeness. So now
biologics.
Now you know how it feels, Dave.
That high strangeness thing doesn't bother me like it bothers you. Obviously, it climbed under your skin like a bad itch, and you're having a hard time scratching it. I just think so. Here's the whole thing, right? I'm gonna throw something in here at the beginning of the show, otherwise I'm gonna totally forget. So UAPs, I got angry, not angry, but like personally, like whatever. When UFOs, unidentified flying objects, had to be relabeled to unidentified aerial phenomena. What the hell is the difference? There's no goddamn difference there, okay? But it taken a step further that in December of 2022, Congress changed the meaning of UAP from unidentified aerial phenomena to unidentified anomalous phenomena, because they wanted the term to be all encompassing for anything, whether it be skybound, earthbound, or waterbound, which I found to be interesting. And I'm going to throw this in there too, because this totally blew my mind. And this is why I love when we got a research topic. UAPs, I'm thinking to myself, who's the idiot who brought this term up? And I love the show, love Skinwalker. But a few episodes back, when they had the guest on, who said that he was all the claims that he had about what was happening on the ranch while he was there, and that he felt that the ranch was reacting to him.
Oh, Jay Stratton.
He took credit for the term UAPs because Travis said, "Oh, so you're the guy who gave us the term?" And he's like, yeah, that was me. Okay, I got it again from the research I did. The term UAPs was actually originated in the 1960s. So I'm not thinking that this guy, who's not as old as I am, was around in 1960 creating the term UAP.
I think he just meant he put it into he
present day context.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but he executed it. Like he was the one that put it in as, not some random terminology.
It's not a knock. I'm just throwing it out there because the term UAP has been around since the 60s, and I found that to be very interesting. That it was there, and then it got tabled for whatever reason. I wonder if UAP was the term, then UFO replaced it, and now we're transitioning back to UAP and moving away from UFO. I wonder if that's kind of like some chronological order, which we're not going to waste any time on tonight. But I just wonder in my mind if that might be what is happening.
Maybe. One of the things that struck me right off the bat, like they hadn't even gotten to opening remarks before I had a couple things like written down. And the first one was the extra Congress people who were part of this subcommittee. Like they had people like, I want to be a part of this hearing. And
right.
So they grandfathered like 3 or 4 Congress people into this meeting or into this hearing that were not part of, that would not normally be a part of that subcommittee.
Right.
And that threw me for a loop right there. And that is just like how many people in Congress that want these answers. And what struck me, and this will be my first question to you, Dave, because I kind of want to, there's so much to unpack. And so I don't even know like where to start. So I'm just going to start with this. There's a couple Congress people who were a part of this hearing who people thank them left and right. I thank this, Congressman Luna for her leadership and bringing this topic to the table. I mean, they probably spent the first half hour thanking each other.
Yeah. There's a whole shitload of patting on the back going on. Yeah,
right. There was, and brown nosing, and
oh god, it was horrible.
Yeah, it really was. But that's Congress. So the thing about it was, and they talked about this multiple times, is they tried to find out information about a UAP sighting in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And this was Matt Gaetz, who I'm absolutely no fan of in any way, shape, or form, but will say this. I thought his questions and I thought his the things he talked about and whatnot were probably the best I've ever seen of him. And like I said, I was impressed with that because I hate that guy. But I was impressed with that. And they were right. This is a nonpartisan topic. And which again, love it. So they tried to figure out and find answers about what this UAP was doing and what the military knew. And they were denied. They were turned away at an air base. They were not given. They had to go through several red tape, several loops of finding this law and that law just to get a look at photos.
Right.
So here's my question, because this seemed to me that making this public and having this hearing almost seemed like a temper tantrum of theirs, because they were denied. It wasn't so much we want answers, it was we want answers as to why we can't find answers. So my first question to you is, do you think that if they had been given the clearance, because they have the clearance, they can see classified information, they're part of Congress.
Right.
If they had been given right off the bat the information that they were requesting, would the hearing have ever happened?
Yes, because if you take that group, the same group of people that like to pat each other on the back and tap each other on the ass and talk about how great they are to each other, they would have seen, had they been given the information, a portion of that would have been satiated by that. A portion of them would have totally scoffed at it and been like, whatever. And then a portion of them would have been, took a second, like what we say on this show all the time, right? Take a second, find one granule that makes you pause and think, right? And educate and expand your horizons and educate your mind. There would have been a portion of them that would have fit into that group. So they would have stopped and said, hey, I saw this. I don't quite understand how that's physically possible. I need to look a little deeper into it. Can somebody help me? Where can I go next? Right? What's my next step? So that I can get a better idea of this, so that I can discuss it intelligently. And so, do I think it would have happened? I do think it would have happened. I think it would have been a lot. I think it would have been a lot different, and you would have had more clear divisional lines drawn, I think, between the naysayers, the total believers, and then the people who wanted more information. And I think that got lost in the fact that they didn't get what they wanted. And so they bitched about it. And you would, and the positive thing that would have came out of that would, none of the bitching would have been there. So there wouldn't have been 30 minutes of ass patting and then followed by 30 minutes of bitching about, right, out of 2 hours and 19 minutes. And then we wouldn't have had, of course you would still have people, and I'm not going to name names here, who would congratulate their wives on 9 years of fantastic marriage, and their dog Rusty brought them the paper the other day, and all this other crap. You really, like I told you, when it's a great topic. It's a great topic. And when you dig through the bullshit, there's some great pieces of information and some great questions in here. You just have to dig through it. That's all. And I warned you that ahead of time. You just got to dig through it. You got to get past the crap and find those little tidbits, those little bright shining stars that are in there, because there's some real beauties.
So, I mean, if you take into account the fact that, and they had mentioned this a few times during the hearing, that this was like the most exciting hearing that was going to happen on Capitol Hill that entire week. And, people
probably
wanted
this year.
Well, I mean, they're definitely going to have more. And, another thing that really bit their asses, obviously, was that they wanted to get into a skiff, which, for those of you who don't know, is a room that is completely sealed, soundproofed. Right. It's shielded from all, sensors and whatnot. It's where people exchange classified information when you have the clearance. Well, they were even
basically
exactly like they were even denied that. So, I mean, what this shows me, and they even used statements and stuff from Chuck Schumer, who is leader of the Senate. It shows to me how little about UAPs and this phenomena that our government, at least that branch of government, actually knows. Like it just seems
they're totally oblivious to it. I think it's one of those way out in left field or way out in right field, depending on where you sit. Here's what I think. I think that it needs to be a priority, not because we need to be scared that we're going to be attacked. We don't need to increase our military budget. We don't need to start building weapons of mass destruction and nuclear warheads that are capable of traveling to outer space because of this. Because this shit has been happening for a century, longer than a century. If you look back to the first reported UFO sightings, it's like back at Plymouth Rock, when people were like, we're going to name this Plymouth Rock because we landed here and da-da-da-da. Hey, look at that. There's a UFO. And then everybody stopped and watched. They did, though. One of the earliest recitings was like 1659 in Massachusetts, where 800 people witnessed it. And everybody wrote about it. So is it something that's just happened in the last 20 years, 50 years? Is Roswell the catalyst? No, Roswell's not the goddamn catalyst. Roswell just happens to be a moment where we had the opportunity to do some retrieval process. Were things flying around in the sky prior to that? Yeah. Yes. 99.9%.
Way to backtrack on that one.
No, I'm not backtracking. I was 100% ready to move forward to this topic away from questions tonight. But 99.9% that yes on the UFO topic.
So I'm glad you mentioned the budget, because that was like the next thing that I wrote down. Like that was during opening statements that threw me for a loop, is that the budget for the program that is supposed to research UFOs and UAPs and all this other, the budget is classified.
Right.
That threw me for an absolute loop. I mean, because Congress's I should say one of their main purposes is oversight of the government budget.
Right.
And I mean, they were talking about how every year they have to audit the Pentagon. And one of the guests was talking about how if he's $1 off of his like flight things, like he gets a talking to, but for some reason, it doesn't work the other way.
Right.
And so the fact that the budget for UAP investigation so that is classified was a shocker to me. Like that, I don't know why you would ever have to classify a budget for anything, really.
So here's my answer on that. I think it's because if the taxpayers knew how much money was really being spent on UAP research, they'd shit their pants.
So here's the other thing that I wrote down, because when they were talking about how they had to audit the Pentagon, they went into some details that I had to write down, because I was like, what? The Pentagon per year puts into their taxes or their reports, loses about $1 billion a year. That 60% of their funds are unaccounted for every year. Because the guy that was like, we have to audit the Pentagon every year. They fail every year. But yet, and one of the
you notice there's no ramifications for that.
No, there's not.
Right. So it's just you guys failed again this year. And the Pentagon just goes, hey, thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it. And there's the door, get a cookie on the way out and a bottle of water and have a nice life. Right. They don't give a shit.
Yeah. Congratulations on your anniversary.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm glad I'm glad you trained your dog, Rusty. So, all right, have a nice life. All right, get out of here. And
they asked one of the guests who was a part of what they call him, the NGW. He my God, that guy has a lot of information in his head, because there was a ton of answers. He's like, I can't discuss that in public. I can only if we're on a skiff and you have proper clearance. I'll be happy to inform you. I mean, it's like, holy mother. And these were like some big ass questions. Like, has anybody ever been murdered? Because of what they believe. And he was like, I need to be very careful here. On what I answer.
David Grunch. That was the whistleblower. Yeah, the retired. I think he was a major, if I'm not mistaken, what his title was. Anyway, that's his name. So I think he's a retired major. Let's see. Retired Major David Grunch. So he was part of the Pentagon's UAP task force. That's the guy who kind of broke this whole gist of what was going on, because he was privy to a bunch of information that when he started digging deeper and he started asking, like, what's going on here? Why are we not talking about this openly? He started getting threatened. And it got to the point where, as we have talked about previously, we don't know this to be a fact, but we certainly think it is a fact, like with Chad Kalick when back in the day when we were talking a lot about Chad, is the best way to protect yourself. And again, Skinwalker Ranch just said this like a week or two ago. The best way to protect yourself is to be completely open and transparent and in the news and moving forward in the news. Because if you're secretive and you're hiding in the shadows and you're going to be one of those people they find that died of some mysterious illness where black foam was coming out of your mouth when they found you. Kind of like the guy that we've talked about in the past out in California. It's going to be one of those moments. But if you're in the news and you're sitting and testifying in front of Congress and you're doing tons of interviews and you're all over the media, the likelihood of you dying from some mysterious cause diminishes greatly, I believe, because they just don't want the attention. You know, the powers that be that hide in the shadows don't want they're not going to open up any type of potential crack in their foundation to jeopardize what they do, I guess the best way to put it. So,
yeah. And, just going back to the budget really quick. One of the questions that was asked was, how did they get the funding then for all of this stuff? And so he was like, misappropriation of funds. And so the congressman clarified, it's like, so it's something in a bill that says it's supposed to go to plan A, but really goes to this other thing. And he's like, yep. But
yep.
And it goes back to Independence Day, where Jeff Goldblum's father or whatever, he was like, "What? You don't really think they spend $10,000 on a hammer, $20,000 on a toilet seat, do you?"
Right. That's exactly right. But everybody points that out and then laughs at it. Mm-hmm. Oh, you guys spend $20,000 on toilet seats. You guys are crazy. Ha ha ha. Let's move on to the next topic. Yeah, the toilet seat was $4.99 from Menards, and then we took the rest of the money and funneled it into. And by the way, we bought 1,000 toilet seats, and then we funneled the extra money into this little secret fund so that we could kind of do this and do that. I think when NIDS was on the ranch, didn't it get like $10 or $12 million?
Actually, I was just
22 million is sticking out in my mind for some reason, but. Like they got millions of dollars to do research on the ranch.
Yeah, the government offered a contract to anybody who wanted to bid for like research. And naturally,
at the ranch.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if it was at the ranch. It was
at the ranch because I know exactly where you're going with this. It was research at the ranch.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it was research at the ranch, but I know that.
Because the Air Force was in part of it, and right, because the Air Force was part of it, the Navy was part of it. Like there were all of these major branches of the government, plus private contractors that they expected to bid, and the only one that bid was Bigelow.
Yeah, the only one that bid was Bigelow.
The only one out of all these people who were talking about bidding, the only bid that they received was Bigelow's.
Right
now, there's something wrong with that.
And so he got the contract, and then they got absolutely nothing in return.
No, 10 years. 10 years.
And they got
zero.
And they got zero back. And so they, obviously that poses, and nobody's complaining. Nobody's like, Bigelow, where's our money? Where's our results? Mm-hmm. They're just like, well, here's 22 million. Have at it.
Well, not only that, but now he's got major aerospace contracts with the government. Major contracts. So, he's I don't know if you want to say he was in the right place at the right time or if he played his cards right, however you want to phrase it. But they can't be angry at him. If they were angry at him, they wouldn't have given him all these big mega $1 million contracts for Bigelow Aerospace.
Well,
somebody's not angry at him for not giving up the information, or they got the information. The people who needed to see it saw it, and everybody else from high up down it was on a need to know basis, and you didn't need to know because your clearance wasn't high enough.
See, and I get where you would go with that, but honestly, and you and I haven't really had this conversation because as I've watched, like Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, and as I've
Yeah.
watched Skinwalker Ranch, and I've just throw things around in my head. When I look at the evidence that comes in, I personally do not think he was doing research. I think he was doing work for the government on a secret project, and it was masked as research, which is why he's got nothing. Which is why he's got nothing to show for it. And now we have things buried in the mesa, and we have a possible wormhole sitting there in the middle of the ranch, and we have this
The
other ranch.
spire in the East Field. Yeah.
Right. We have the spire in the East Field. We have the thing that's like 30 feet above. But not only that, but we have the other property that suddenly showed up. I didn't know he had two fucking properties. Oops. Dropped the F-bomb myself there. Dropped the F-bomb myself there. My bad. I didn't know he had two properties at the exact same time, and they were throwing out, and they discovered even more.
The other ranch that he had was just as much of a hotbed of UFO activity, if not a bigger hotbed than Skinwalker Ranch was.
Exactly. And
Right.
so it just doesn't seem right. I don't think he was actually doing research as we're told. But that's a conversation for another time, because that had nothing to do with the UAPs. So one of the couple other things that they talked about, there's a decades long crash and retrieval program, which apparently happens so often they need a program for it, even though they don't. You look like you're just sitting there reading.
No, I'm not. I was looking at something that just popped into my feed as you're talking, which is kind of strange that it just popped up, which is Tim Burchett's calling the whole thing a total joke. I don't know why that would show up. So anyway, sorry. It just caught my eye as I'm sitting here listening to you.
And he's one of the congressmen, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. And he said that the whole thing was a total joke because that's what he labeled it as, that the whole thing was a waste of time and a total joke. He said because he wanted to hear stories about people that had seen it, and he didn't get any stories. And so he's all upset about the fact he didn't get any stories, which I think is so far off track that he should just be relieved of his position. Because hearing stories, anybody can tell a story. Actually getting somebody talking about the stuff that Grunch was talking about, the pilots were talking about out of the three-person panel that was there. You've got F-14 pilots who were there when the Tic Tac was witnessed. Mm-hmm. Actually was in the plane witnessing it. Mm-hmm. Scratching their head with the other pilots who were in the sky with them at the same time going, what the hell are we witnessing? Because there's no way that this can physically be happening. And then there's no way it can drop from 30,000 feet to 100 feet over the surface of the water and then just disappear and go underneath the ocean. It's physically impossible for it to happen. Yet it happened. And they documented the whole entire thing. So I just find it weird. I don't know why and how that showed up. It's strange things happen to me all the time. But anyway, he said it was a total joke because he didn't feel that they gave, let's see, the UFO hearing this morning was a total joke. He said after the meeting, we should have heard from people who could talk about things they'd personally seen. This is in quotes. This is a quote. That we should have heard from people who could talk about things they'd personally seen, but instead the witnesses were government officials with limited knowledge who couldn't give real answers to serious questions. He must not have seen the same 2 hour and 19-minute video that I saw. Because I think there was a whole lot of discussion from people who really went out on a limb to talk about the things that they talked about. The one guy is David Grunch is fearing for his life. He said it in plain English. He's like, I've been harassed. I've been intimidated. My family's been harassed. People have died, but I can't go into detail. We need to go into the skiff like you were talking about. He's like, he even said, right, if you have the clearance, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it in a private setting without any type of recording instruments happening. He goes, and then I can give you names and details of knowledge that I have, but we're not going to talk about it here. I don't blame the guy. He's scared for his well-being. He should be, right? The big machine that keeps churning does that to people.
Yep.
You know,
one of the things that they did confirm, or especially him, and I think other people on the panel did as well, is that there is a government program. There's a government desire or whatever to discredit and put out misinformation about this stuff to hide it. I mean, and that was one of the things that was brought up multiple times by multiple congressmen. It was that, are there people trying to cover this up? Are there people hiding this stuff? And why? I know that they were asked a couple times about, is there anything that you have seen? Even like I think the chairman even asked the question about, is there anything 20 years ago that was seen that would need to be kept classified now? Why couldn't they tell us about this now if it happened 20 years ago? And, he really didn't have an answer for that. I mean, obviously, because he's not the one in charge, but I think he did say, not to his knowledge, why would they, there's no reason for it. I know that the guy who was in the commander that was in the plane that saw the Tic Tac was like, yeah, I've been treated fine, but he's like,
yeah,
people everybody saw it. He's like, the Nimitz recorded it. I can't remember the other ship that recorded it. They all had the stuff. They all saw it. And then we all got back and we all talked about it. And then it went away and nobody pulled the information. Nobody did anything with it. They're just, all right, now it's Tuesday.
That's because there's protocols in place for incidences when they happen like that. There's protocols in place and somebody on that staff is in charge of that moment. Guaranteed. It's not like you and I would have an experience. It's not like you and I and just a group of our friends that are just normal people who have an interest in the paranormal and odd things. It's not like a group of us got together, experienced this great phenomenal moment. One of us wouldn't be like, okay, well, we're just, that was cool. Let's just move on. And then wake up the next morning and go to work and everything's just fine and normal, right? In that moment, during that whole experience with all of those personal witnesses, somebody was in charge that had the knowledge and the protocol in place for when it needed to happen. They were going to be there and made sure that it got addressed and taken care of the right way. That's exactly what happened. It's like a sleeper person waking up. That's the way I look at it, right? It's like a sleeper cell waking up. The sleeper cell goes about their business their whole entire life. Everything's completely normal. They got their job. They're an accountant. They're a musician. They're a radio broadcaster, grocery store clerk, whatever. And then whatever the phrase is, whatever the moment is that wakes them up, all of a sudden they're like some super killer, some machine.
You're pretty much talking about the Bourne Identity.
Well, right. It could be the Bourne Identity or dozens of other things. The Russians were big into that years ago, like putting sleeper cells in place. But, I mean, so it's like that to me, right? Somebody was in the right place. Somebody who was in that moment had already been trained about that. And they just did exactly what you just talked about. They just deflected it. They were just like, hey, that was a hell of a thing. Man, that was crazy, wasn't it? Holy shit, I can't even believe it. Yeah, just give me all the stuff and I'll send it up the pipeline. I'll take care of it. Right? Well, and then everybody else just went back to their, like you said, everybody went back to their, it's Tuesday. So
Well, the commander did say he didn't think that there was any sort of cover up intended. It just kind of sat in a file. I don't know if they necessarily tried to cover up the Tic Tac as much as they just wanted to put more things over the top of it to make it look like it wasn't that important. That's the face I make.
Maybe I'm going to throw where's the bullshit flag again on that? I'm going to throw the bullshit flag on that. I don't think that was the case. How can you have a mind-blowing experience like that as a fighter pilot in the sky, national security is at risk, seeing an object that doesn't exist, and all of a sudden you're witnessing it firsthand in the sky, doing phenomenal feats that are impossible for our current aircraft to do. And then you're on the ground, I say on the ground, in the water, on an aircraft carrier, witnessing the same thing on radar and personal experience with people standing out on the deck witnessing it. And everybody who witnesses it is just like, wow, that was amazing. What are we having for breakfast tomorrow morning? Is it going to be hash or is it the egg bake scrambled with ham? Because I love that egg bake, man. And fresh fruit. You got to get the fruit cup with the egg bake. That's the bomb. I mean, that does not happen. I'm sorry.
They did answer because it was asked if humans could survive the G forces that would happen in while it's making these sort of thing, and all of them were like no. We're like no human could survive the G forces that would do it. But I'm glad that you mentioned national security because this was something that I wrote down, and I would like your take on it because throughout at least the first half of the hearing, national security was mentioned a lot. It's just a thing of national security. This is a thing of national security. Are these people a threat to national security? They even said, would we be able to? The word superior came up. Would we still be? Is this a threat to our superiority? I think is might have been what the statement was, and I laughed when I heard it, and because to these things, we have no national security. Like even all three of them were asked if you were in the plane. I mean, obviously the commander was, and these things decided to turn around and come at you. Would you be able to defend yourself against them? Every single one of them were like, no, definitely not.
No.
And so I laugh at this because we continue to have this sense that we're going to beat them. Like this is a superiority thing that they're coming to take everything that we have from us. And I sit there and I thought that there was one question. There was one congressman that asked the one question, and the guy was I think misunderstood. But he said, did you ever feel like their behavior was aggressive towards you? And he thought that, and the guy on the panel thought that they were talking about like the government people.
Yeah.
Like their actions were, but he was talking about the UAPs.
Right.
And I laugh because I'm like, they're here. We all know they're here.
Right.
They have technology and ways of doing things we can't even comprehend. If they wanted to kill us, they would.
Right. If they wanted to harvest all of our natural precious metals, they would have already harvested them.
Yes.
There wouldn't be any more gold digger shows on cable TV because there would be no more gold left on the planet Earth. If they were after king crabs, that whole entire show of Deadliest Catch would not exist because there would be no more crabs around, right? If they wanted if this alien life form wanted something from us, they would have already taken it. The fact that they haven't should be reassuring to all of us that they're not here in an aggressive fashion.
And that's what I can't understand. And that I keep going back to this has absolutely nothing to do with reality, but the way we acted it, because I always laughed at the Godzilla movies, the new Godzilla movies, because if there are any movies out there that show you how dumb, like especially the United States military and government is, to think that sending an F-14 against Godzilla with a couple missiles is going to do anything to them, but they
Right.
have, and the part 2, the King of the Monsters, they have a congressional hearing scene in it, and they're all like, what are we going to do about this, and blah 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 blah, and he's like, Dr. Serizawa, his character, is like, I just think we should leave them alone or whatever, or do this or do that. And she's like, you sound like you want to make him our pet. He's like, no, we would be his.
Yeah.
And that like got this uproar. I can't believe he said that.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, if they wanted to conquer us,
It would have happened.
they would have done so already.
Right.
And they don't, the question was thrown out, do you think that this is reconnaissance? Are they trying to find our vulnerabilities? And I'm just like, they already know them. They don't care. They could defeat them easily. And,
you got to go, and this is getting way off topic here, but I'm going to interject this super quick just because of what you're talking about. If you look in history at some of the greatest moments in our human history about UFO incidences that are pretty rock solid, are around military installations that have nuclear warheads, where a craft shows up and all of a sudden all the shit stops functioning, right? Mm-hmm. Like the inability to launch happens. Like they couldn't send a damn warhead if they wanted to because they no longer have control of the situation. I think that is the pleasant way of whatever this race of individuals are. I think that's their pleasant way of saying, look, you probably shouldn't be dicking around with nuclear warheads. And I'm just letting you know today that we're not going to let you launch, that we can just pretty much come in and shut down like your 50 warheads that are right here in the middle of these cornfields in Kansas. Like we know that they're here and we're going to come in and shut you down. Or the ones that were the Minutemen silos in North Dakota, and there's a ton of stories about those. Or going over to Germany and Rottingham and that incident there that was witnessed by the whole entire military facility that was outside watching it happen. And all of those warheads being shut down in Germany. They weren't even our warheads. They were their warheads. But I'm just saying, it's a worldwide phenomenon. This isn't a U.S. thing. This is a world issue. It's a world moment. I shouldn't say issue. I retract that. It's a world moment, right? We're all on the same planet. None of us are leaving and running to some other planet, whether you're German, Russian, Chinese, American, Asian, whatever. It doesn't make any difference. We're not going anywhere. We're all here together. So we all need to kind of be on the same page with this. And not a war page, please. Not a war page.
Well, I was
just a page of understanding.
I was just going to say that the first step into doing anything is we need to lose our arrogance.
Absolutely.
And this whole, how do we stay the superior race? Well, we're not.
We're not a superior race.
I mean, if what Cena was talking about a few weeks ago, I mean, we're about to blow up the earth anyway.
Right.
But that like I said, that just made me laugh today. And how we're still trying to be number one when we're not even close. Like we're not even in the running for number one. No. So there's that was something that I really wanted to get your take on and have that discussion with. Um, but since there's a couple other things, and we only have like 15 minutes left, or a little less than that.
Well, let's talk about the biological material, right? That was found, right?
Well,
That Grunch said basically that they have already harvested non-human biological. I don't know if you want to say DNA. It might not be DNA, but material. Let's just use the word material because, we understand as human beings that everything like has DNA. It doesn't mean that this race, this alien race, has DNA. They might not have DNA. They might have something different than DNA, which is why they can fly through mesas. Who knows?
right. Well, I mean, he did say, he says he had not seen them himself, but that he has been told, and I think he's even seen like the documentation or whatever, that we do not only have crashed, ships or whatever, but we
Right.
do have non-human biologics. We do have,
Right.
What everybody calls the bodies.
Right.
But he was asked if he had seen them himself, and he said no. But yeah, so I mean, we definitely have all the information that we need, like our government does. That's for sure. I don't want to go away from this because he obviously wanted to, but I don't have a lot of information beyond what was talked about in this thing about the fact that we do have it. We do have bodies. We do have ships that have been, I guess, that have crashed, and we have retrieved them.
Right. Whether we shot them down or whether it was just whether we did something to cause them to crash, I should say, not that we shot them down, or whether it was just some sort of malfunction, from their standpoint. Although I use that with caution because if you can get here from wherever you're coming from, I'm kind of thinking that you're not going to be breaking down arbitrarily, Like I think that there has to be some sort of involvement from us. Like something that we're doing caused them to bring a ship down.
Yeah, one of the congressmen actually brought that up. He said we're like billions of light years away from the next system, and he's like, so how, if they can get here, are they crashing?
Right.
And
Right.
and I can't remember which one of them actually answered that question, but he was like, you have thousands of airplanes that fly every single day. Every once in a while, one of them, something goes wrong, and
Right.
one of them crashes. I mean, so I get that, but I am
Again, though, we're putting that into our neat little package of human answers.
yes.
We're not in that type of response. Nobody's thinking outside the box. Everybody's putting everything into the box so that it's a nice, neat, sharp, defined corners where nothing's going to leak outside. Now, and I wouldn't expect anything less from the species that invented time.
You mean us?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if the shoe fits, right? So I think that mankind in general is very uncomfortable if everything doesn't fit into a nice, neat, concise, secure box. I think that people lose their mind if there's something on the outside of that box that they can't control. And
Just like
control is such an illusion anyway, but it's a term people like to use.
just like the Joker said, if something doesn't go according to plan, people lose their mind.
Oh, absolutely.
But if something goes according to plan, or it's supposed to happen, nobody panics.
Right.
So I want to bring this up
Yep.
because it was new to me, and I'm sure it was new to you. But the description of the UAP that had been seen by many different pilots at different times, and that is the black or dark gray cube
Yeah, with the
inside
sphere around it.
inside the clear sphere.
Yeah.
Now I've heard a lot of, the triangle, it's this
Mhm.
huge, it's that huge, it's the ball. I've never heard that description before.
No.
Like period. Have
No.
you?
No. No, that was something like totally kind of new to me too. You know, a lot of people were seeing the same thing, right? A round sphere, clear, with a cube inside where the points touched the edges of the sphere. The 4 points touched the edges of the sphere.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of like, to me, that almost sounds like a probe, like some sort of data gathering type of item. I don't I don't know. I just in my mind's eye, I guess I just don't see that being a manned. I use the term manned, but occupied vessel, right? Like I don't see that being an occupied vessel. I see that more as just something that's there to gather data for whatever reason they're gathering data. Obviously, they're not gathering data to strip all of our gold from the planet or to conquer us. But it doesn't mean that they're not monitoring us. It doesn't mean that they're not gathering. If we went to another planet, if we had the ability to go to another planet, right, and took our mentality that we have today and our technology we have today, we'd be monitoring the shit out of that other planet. Even if it was just common everyday, like what are they doing today, right? I mean, we'd be monitoring the hell out of it. There'd be all kinds of stuff flying around in the air, and like, satellites, microphones, video cameras. It'd be everything, man, pegged out, just trying to get more information about where we were and what it was. I think that there's a potential that that's what's happening. Do you think it's manned? Or I'm sorry, I keep using the term manned. Do you think
I,
it's occupied by an intelligent life form, or do you think it's
I
just a probe? I guess let's say a probe. It's a better term.
I think it's definitely possible, depending on how big it is, because they didn't really talk about how actual big it was, just what it looked like.
Right.
So I mean, if it was big enough to hold people in it, then yeah, I think it could have been occupied. But not by a lot, and I don't think it's going to have a crew of like 25, non-human organisms in it. But I mean, could have one, could have two, if it's big enough, sure. So my question is, and I'm surprised that you haven't brought this up yourself, because you mentioned Chad earlier,
Yeah.
and you know, we are under the knowledge that he was sent the the blueprints for
Mhm.
the Tic Tac after obviously it was seen and caught on the video, and that would make it man-made, made by us. And so I'm just, and one of the questions, obviously, and they brought this up a couple times actually, is, does the military have programs? Do they have technologies that could do this? And all three of the panelists are like, no, absolutely not. We're decades away from this type of technology. But are we? You know,
If you talk to the conspiracy theorists that we've talked to in our lives, that'll tell you that anything you see is already 20 years old, that they've already moved way beyond that. I'm kind of on the fence. I really don't have a definitive answer here, but I'll tell you this. I think that what better way to set out a discredit policy, right? Than to create some blueprints, some detailed blueprints, and ship them out to the certain individuals and be like, okay, I got this. Don't show anybody else. But that thing that we saw, that's man-made, right? And then ship out these blueprints and show them off. And then the people that are in the know are going, oh, it's the government. And then they're shipping those copies that they have out. And next thing you know, the whole entire thing is discredited as being a government program. That wasn't a UFO. That was a government program. Was it? Was that what was happening? Or is that a UFO that somebody decided that the best way to dissuade the general populace of thinking it was a UFO was to create schematics for this object and then leak them out into the general population? I can see that happening in a heartbeat. I think it happens all the time anyway. We know that disinformation is a science all unto itself. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is, how do you think that we got the stealth bomber? How do you think that we got technology where we can send a fighter plane up and radar can't detect it? Did we just magically create that one day? No. Is that reverse engineered from some greater technology than we possessed? Yeah, most likely. So in that train of thought, did we create something? It could be. It could be an experimental thing. But again, why are you showing it off? So I'll tell you, I was in northern Minnesota heading to Canada with my cousin and a couple of his buddies. And we got buzzed by a stealth bomber before stealth bombers existed. Or stealth fighter. Sorry, not a bomber. Stealth fighter. We got a flyover in northern Minnesota from a stealth fighter before stealth fighters were even a thing. This was 1980, between 84 and 80, between 83 and 85 that this happened. I don't remember the exact year, but I know the time frame and I know how old I was. So it was between 83 and 85 that this happened. And we actually saw a stealth fighter, and stealth fighters existed yet. But it existed because we saw it. And we sat there and watched it, and it flew over us a half a dozen times. As it was doing training maneuvers, we just happened to be in the right place at the right time on this lonely stretch of northern Minnesota road heading to the Canadian border. Did it happen? Yeah, it happened. Was it technology that was not generally known yet? Yeah, it was. We saw it.
So last thing,
Yeah.
because we only have a couple minutes, and this was asked a couple of times, and I liked their answers. I honestly did, very, very much, because I thought they were spot on. But it was asked, right along with the G forces, like, are we capable of creating these craft and doing the physics of it? And every one of them, when they answered a question like that, said, that is not possible for us to know right now.
Right.
Not that we couldn't, but that right now, that does not compute with how we see the laws of physics.
Physics, right.
And I go right back, because this is right along the same line, to Men in Black, the movie.
Right.
And it's one of my favorite quotes, and I love it to death since it's kind of come back into my life because it's so true. And I'm going to end the show with this, because I think it fits perfectly with this. And it's conversation obviously between Will Smith's character and Tommy Lee Jones, and he says, a person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it. 1,500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was the center of the universe. 500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was flat. And 15 minutes ago, you knew that humans were alone on this planet. Imagine what you'll know tomorrow.
Right.
And this just goes into that there's the cutoff. There's the difference between what they know, whether it's non-human biologics or whether it's upper military, and what we know. They might have broken everything that we hold to be true already, and we will never know it until they want us to.
Conspiracy theory 101.
Right. And you know, the thing is both of our reaction to that is all that we can do. Shrug.
Right. Because that's all you could do.
Yeah.
It's a great quote, though.
It is a great quote. I've loved that line because it is 100% true.
Absolutely.
So that does it for this week. We'll be back next week with another episode. And then remember, Thursday, August 24th, we will have, we'll just call him Mark. The showrunner for Skinwalker Ranch on the show with us. So stay tuned for all of that and stay healthy, stay safe. We want to see you back here next week.